Thanks for joining us, everyone, and welcome to the online summit, Let Go and Live Free, How to Overcome Emotional Obstacles and Live a Positive, Purpose-Filled Life. I'm your host, Lee Stein, and today we welcome best-selling author of The Vitality Secret, Neil Cannon. Hey, Neil, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Lee, thank you so much for inviting me on your summit. I'm honored to be here.
Absolutely. I'm going to tell our audience a little bit about you, and then we can dive into it, okay?
Fantastic.
Like I said, Neil is the best-selling author of The Vitality Secret and creator of an award-winning digital health program. The focus of Neil's work is to help people reverse inflammatory conditions. Neil also has a podcast in which he shares people's empowering stories of how they've healed their bodies of incurable conditions, including multiple sclerosis, prostate cancer, fibromyalgia, osteoporosis, and lots more. That is incredible.
Thank you, Lee. Well, it's not my work. I'm just interviewing people. They've done the hard work.
Well, obviously they must have something in common, right? And that's why you have them on your podcast. So I want to hear more about that. Let's start with understanding what the relationship is between inflammation and all of our ills.
Sure thing. So in short, it is the root cause of almost every common illness, every chronic disease, and accelerated aging. And I stumbled upon this topic accidentally almost when I was actually researching this condition that my father had been diagnosed with a few years prior to having a stroke. And I thought, hang on, could this stroke have been avoided? Already coming from a nutritional background myself, I just thought, let's go on a bit of a mission and find out about this. And I kept on seeing this word, inflammation, written everywhere. So I went on a bit of a quest. Some people were calling it the holy grail of health, or what lies beneath, and really putting forward the idea that it is something really important to get a hold of. And I soon found out that the eczema I had suffered from my entire life is an inflammatory condition. The asthma, which most of my family suffer from, is an inflammatory condition. And then almost every common illness is inflammatory. So every skin condition, breathing problems like asthma, digestive problems like IBS, IBD, or forms of IBD, which are Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, is all inflammation. Migraines, inflammation. Joint pain, inflammation. Gout and arthritis, they're inflammatory conditions. So
this is such a common denominator. I feel, as you're talking, I feel like if everybody knew that, it would just be so easy.
So easy.
Why does it seem to be such a secret?
That's a very good question, Lee. Very good question. It's actually one that, it's a condition that we should be testing ourselves for at least every 6 months. Maximum every year. We go for blood tests, not often enough, but really it's the best way to really kind of measure what the state of our health. What gets measured gets managed, and we're not measuring for this one thing. And there's one blood test actually, which is called C-reactive protein. There are more, but there's one main inflammatory marker test, which is that one. So yes, we should be doing this at least every 6 months, every year. Why we're not doing this, I believe, goes back to the training that doctors get, in fact. And I actually talk about that in my book, and I won't go into too much detail now. But long and the short of it is, doctors are not trained in nutrition. They're not trained to heal. And there's a history behind why they are only taught to prescribe medications. There's a solid history, and it goes back to Carnegie and Rockefeller medicine of 1910. And it's the history is pretty shocking, actually. But really, there's a solid reason why doctors from around that time, which is 180 years ago now, have all only been learning, or predominantly learning, about how to cure or help or hide symptoms with medications, because that's how they're trained.
To do with big pharma?
Yes, it's got a lot to do with that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the income, the GDP is 19% in the US from pharma. If everyone gets healthy, that's a lot of money that's going to go amiss.
Absolutely.
So, it sounds really conspiracy theorist like, but it's just kind of maths, or math, as you say in America. Use the S over there. But
no, absolutely. I think anyone who really delves into their own health and wellness has at least read one article, if not a million books, and come to an understanding that it's in the pharmaceutical company's best interest to keep us medicated. and not to numb us and not to have us clear-minded and in our heads so that we can really dive deep into the source of the problem, right? So there's a difference between treating a problem and understanding where that problem comes from, be it mental or physical.
Absolutely.
And then being able to really do the work.
Absolutely. There's a huge difference, because as you said, you know, what if someone goes on their own kind of personal journey of self-healing, everyone comes across this information. It's only people who are kind of, what's the best way of saying this? I guess who don't put their health at number one. That sounds derogatory. But, you know, a lot of people don't have the time, the resources, the time to invest.
You want to feel better immediately.
Exactly. We live busy lives. So the last thing we want to be doing at the end of a working day is to invest all this time finding out about our health. So I get it. It's just that those who go on their own journey do have the time, and they invest the time to find out about it. So it's kind of common knowledge in the nutrition and wellness sector that this kind of stuff happens.
So this interview isn't really about blasting big pharma, right? We want to help people get to the source of their woes. Let me ask you this. Do you feel there is a connection, a direct connection between the inflammation problem and mental health? Yes,
absolutely. In fact, there was an article recently, just before we go on, I don't want to completely slam pharma, because it absolutely has its place.
Right.
It does. You know, emergencies, trauma, gets us out of trouble, and doctors are doing a phenomenal job getting us out of trouble. It's just that we need to understand how they're trained. It's not not their fault. They're amazing people. And I just wanted to make that clear, you know, and actually I've got lots of doctor friends, you know.
Doctors are great. They are there for an honorable purpose. But also take into consideration the fact that doctors in the West are trained in a very different way from doctors in the East, right? Completely. It's not about right or wrong. It's just about different approaches to the same problem, and not one thing works for everyone.
Yes, exactly. And we are seeing a huge shift now as more and more doctors are getting trained in functional medicine, for example, which tells you how to get to the root of every problem.
Exactly.
Anyway, coming back to your question, mental problems. It absolutely plays a huge part in our state of mind. In fact, there was actually an article in the paper quite recently that talks about how chronic inflammation is always present in chronic depressive people.
Really?
So people who are depressed, they're inflamed typically. And I'll never forget this one expert on a documentary I saw. I can't remember his name, but he said for someone to be depressed, or let's put this in a different way around. It would be weird if you were to be eating all this food with no micronutrients, for example, loaded with the stuff that's going to cause inflammation in the gut, and for you not to be depressed. So we're actually living in a culture where most of us are malnourished in micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals from plant-based food. Mm-hmm. That's kind of fact. The whole meat and 2 veg thing, that's not sufficient. That's not enough vegetables in our diet to keep our skin glowing, and ultimately the condition of your skin is a complete direct mirror of what's happening underneath. So it would be weird to not be depressed if you were malnourished in all these micronutrients. So flipping that on its head, to get rid of inflammation and depression, loading up the diet with all these micronutrients and plants and plant-based foods, live enzymes, and really looking after the gut. There's a direct link between the gut health and the brain health. So when we can eat to fuel our brain, really ultimately, then we can actually ease the depression that causes. Yeah. Interestingly, the article was really talking about how medications, anti-inflammatory medications, are helping depressive people. And I just think, well, that's a typical kind of newspaper article. How about not taking the medications and getting rid of the inflammation instead? Yeah. Instead of, quick fix drug. But the article was very interesting because it did say there's a direct link between depression and chronic inflammation. So go
on, I'm sorry.
So I was just going to say, if I was depressed, I'd go and get an inflammation test straight away. And I'd go and get my micronutrient panel, all your vitamins and minerals, and just get a full panel, get the microbiome looked at, just to see the state of the state of your gut, ultimately, and the state of your health.
God, I wish on all those visits that I used to have with psychiatrists to get to the bottom of my issues, and I did go through bouts of depression and then anxiety, I wish in any of those conversations the issue of diet had come up, but it honestly didn't. It was about roots of origin and relationships and a lot about what's going on in your life now. And of course, finding purpose and meaning and happiness, right? All very important things.
100%. Yeah.
But no one mentioned nutrition other than are you eating or are you not eating, right? But if I was eating, there was never a what are you eating question. And it sounds like that is huge.
Yeah, completely. Absolutely. It's a huge part of it. And as well as what we're eating, there's, if we're inflamed, stress and trauma can have, or any negative emotion can have an effect on inflammation. It triggers it. It's kind of like it's almost like the building ground for inflammation, kind of to take a step back. So we need to kind of look at every angle. So food, some things shouldn't be called food, but it's a huge part of getting rid of inflammation, and calming the mind gets rid of inflammation. Releasing trauma from the body helps to ease the inflammation. So, the whole holistic thing is tackling every angle to bring the body back into balance, because if we're experiencing negative emotions, we're out of balance in some way.
Yes.
We think it's all mind, but there's more to it than that. So we do need to think about the nutrition component very carefully. And there's metal toxicity, for example, that can have a direct impact on the state of your brain, and most people never get heavy metal testing. So metal in your teeth, mercury, for example, has been found to be highly toxic and triggers all sorts of neurodegenerative problems. And other pathogens.
Just the fillings that we might have from having gone to the dentist and having our cavities filled?
Yeah.
Could be affecting, okay.
Yeah, completely.
That's scary.
In fact, I know someone who was admitted she was quite literally admitted into a mental hospital, she called it a crazy home, because she actually had them out, but she didn't have them out properly. And she had metal toxicity throughout her body. So I just want to give this side note, very important note. If you do have the mercury out of your teeth, make sure you do it properly, because it needs to be done under strict, very careful circumstances, because you don't want it going throughout your body. As it sometimes seeps into the mouth cavity and into your body, and it causes chaos. So if you do have the mercury out of your teeth, definitely get it done properly. See a functional medicine doctor first and get a really top-notch dentist doing it.
How do you know what the difference is between a functional medical practitioner and a regular medical practitioner exactly?
So firstly, they'll call themselves a functional medicine doctor, and regular MDs, as we talked about, are trained to prescribe medications. And the functional medicine doctor will do all these different tests on you, and they'll go through a thorough kind of examination of your history, and they'll really do everything they can to get to the root of your problem. Ultimately, that's what it's about. Functional medicine is about getting to the root of the problem. So, you touched on it earlier. Drugs just hide symptoms. That's all they do. Even, antidepressants, they're not addressing what's happening. So we need to do everything in our power to get to the root of the problem. So then we know what to do to get rid of it and get right to the root. And functional medicine doctors help you do that.
Is that another way of saying holistic medicine or homeopathic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting, actually. I saw my aunt over the weekend. She's a medical herbalist and naturopath and naturopathic doctor and dietitian and lots of other. She's got about 20 qualifications after her name. In 2003, she said the way of the future is functional medicine, and it's already happening. It's happening in America. It's not really happening over here yet. There's a few over here, but the likes of Mark Hyman are really kind of pioneering that area. Yeah. And it's phenomenal, because there's all these conditions that people are suffering from unnecessarily because they're just taking drugs. And the thing about drugs, by the way, if they're taken long term, is not only are they ineffective, but they cause problems in your gut. They can cause leaky gut. They can cause inflammation themselves. And normally they all come with side effects. So normally you have one drug for which another is prescribed to hide the side effect of that one, hence the cocktail of medications people often end up on.
Yeah.
So it's really important to figure out the root cause, so we don't have to take any medications.
So Neil, my next question is this. If some of our viewers or all of our viewers want to take the next step in terms of nutrition, what would be the easiest next steps for them to take? Maybe it's tell them when they go on a shopping, a grocery visit, what should they be looking at? I know it's not as simple as that, but let's say we want to start with simpler baby steps, or maybe it is.
I think it's pretty simple. I love the grocery store question, because here's what you do when you go to a grocery store. You go to the vegetable section and you go to the fruit section. You go to the outer aisles and you just ignore everything in the middle.
Okay.
It's much quicker. It's much quicker. And you just buy pure food.
Organic.
I mean, that's ultimately, organic food. The point about organic is you don't have the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, or anything that ends in the sides is going to be screwing with your brain, with your gut, everything. It throws your body out of balance. Mm-hmm. My first book was about increasing testosterone naturally. And I found out that all these chemicals are endocrine disrupting chemicals, which are sabotaging men's testosterone levels and raising estrogen levels. So anyway, these are called xenoestrogens, which xenoestrogens, if you didn't know what that said. What I said. So they affect the hormonal balance. Mm-hmm. So when you're shopping, just go pure as you can. So organic veggies, organic meat, fish, eggs, and just really think majority plant-based diet. That's the key to get rid of inflammation. One of the fastest ways to get rid of inflammation is to go on a grain-free plant-based diet. That's why it's used in Gerson therapy to reverse cancer, because cancer is the next step. It's like the next stage of inflammation, if you think of it like that. It's a symptom of toxicity in your body, like a severe symptom. Like now's the time to take action. But the inflammation thing is also toxicity in your body. So if you think about it with Gerson therapy, you cleanse your body through micronutrient therapy. So really vegetables and fruits, and they also do colon therapy, which about 70 to 80% of your immune system's in the gut, and colon therapy is actually very good for the gut and the liver, in fact. But really kind of the bowels and get everything working properly. So, that's what they do. And it's very effective in lots of people, not in everyone, but it is a highly effective treatment. So I often think about that. And, one of the main efforts with Gerson is to get rid of inflammation, to get rid of the cancer, to get rid of, bring the body back into balance. So coming back to original question, when you're going to the grocery store, one of the best things to do is to avoid gluten, certainly in America, because it's been messed with by man. It's nothing like what it used to be at the beginning of the agricultural industry. It's been messed with. It's gone through a process called mutagenesis. And it's been mutated. So there's about 14 different proteins now where the crops used to be about 1.5 meters tall. They're now, they're called dwarf crops, about 1 foot tall, to yield more, less time, great for the agricultural industry, not good for our health. And almost everyone is now intolerant to gluten without knowing. So you can get a very quick result just see how you feel 7 days after doing gluten-free. It will be amazing. Better still 30 days, better still 60, 90, better still never eat it again, unless you go to Italy and have the purest grains. But it's arguable that it's not good for our gut.
What exactly is gluten? Can you kind of lay it out for us in a 101 gluten?
It's like a glue. Okay. It stems from the glue. Gluten comes from glue. It means glue. So it's the stuff that binds the bread together and gets it into this loaf. What's the word I'm trying to look for? It helps bind everything together. So it creates the loaf. The yeast helps it rise, and it's all stick together. It's nice and gooey and delicious and tasty. If you imagine that going into your gut, and your gut goes, what's that? So, so if
I go home and I decide that I want to bake a loaf of bread, right? And that typically involves water, flour, yeast, sometimes eggs, maybe a little bit of sugar, okay? And whatever else I want to add in there for spice purposes, right? What is the first ingredient that I have to be aware of if I want to avoid the gluten? It's the flour, is it not?
Yes, it's the main component of bread.
Right.
So that said, there's some amazing alternatives now. And, the gluten-free thing, it's real. A lot of people think it's a fad, but it's real. And when you just make a bit of a conscious effort, you get a bit creative, and you can find these breads which are gluten-free. They're often made with things like flax seeds and coconut flour and other almond flour and, nut flours. And I can't think off the top of my head because I'm not a chef, but there's lots of alternatives. Let's just say that. And I'd really encourage you to just invest some time into finding gluten-free alternatives. It's the first thing I do with my clients, actually, is to help them find alternatives so it's not one giant sacrifice. I don't like any of my stuff being a sacrifice, actually, because it's not sustainable if we think of it as a sacrifice.
Right.
So I'm trying to make the process as enjoyable as possible, and finding replacements for gluten bread is really beneficial.
So you'd say going as organic as possible and as gluten-free as possible are immediate ways of beginning to reduce the inflammation in our bodies?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. How long does
Really,
it take to see the effects or to feel the effects?
I've had clients that have noticed, well, their skin changing in a matter of days. Arthritis in one client's hands eased off after, I think, 5 days. Just after going gluten-free and plant-based, I was getting them veggie juicing every day. The results can be really fast. For other people, it's not as fast. If you have an autoimmune disease like psoriasis or rheumatoid arthritis, it's going to take a lot longer to get rid of the inflammation. But you're not going to find any functional medicine doctor who does not recommend to go gluten-free. It's high. If you do, I'd love to hear them. I hear from them because I've yet to find one, and I follow a few functional medicine people.
Okay.
So yeah, it's one of the fastest ways. And just think of it, what the body needs at the cellular level. We are made up of trillions of cells that require oxygen, water, nutrients, and the ability to eliminate waste.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to move. We need to drink plenty of clean water, premium clean water. We need to get nutrients. So nutrients, really, I'm talking about are plant-based foods. I'm not a vegan and I'm not a vegetarian. I do make the majority part of my diet plant-based. And I don't eat as much meat as I used to, or fish, but I do eat a lot of eggs, organic, free-range, pasture-raised eggs. And vegans would hate that, but that's how I live. That's how I choose. So really go majority plant-based.
And do you use any sort of supplements for anything you might not be getting organically, or once you do these things, you're all set?
There are supplements that I recommend. Yes, there is. It's kind of you've got to be careful with supplements, not just kind of guess, because a lot of people just load up on all these supplements and then you go and get tested and you're not even absorbing them. So it's really worth getting tested to see where you're deficient. I mean, I would take some probiotics, I'd take some enzymes, I'd take, glutathione maybe.
But it's a personal thing, so there's no blanket prescription. You have to see the functional doctor, right? Or a holistic person, a homeopathic doctor who can run these tests, talk to you about the symptoms that you're experiencing, the issues that you're going through, and then chart a course.
Exactly.
That sound
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I work one-on-one with clients, I help people do this in a more kind of bespoke way. I'm kind of giving general advice here. Everyone has their own taste buds, their own habits, and I guess that's why private clients get the best results, because it's more tailored and it's more fun for them, because it's quite a change for a lot of people to make these changes.
I'll bet.
So, the hand holding helps.
Yeah. It sounds though like it is an integral part of the journey toward health and wellness, be it physical health, but certainly it seems mental health as well. So our audience is here because they want to learn about overcoming emotional obstacles, right? And it sounds like in order to do that, one piece of that puzzle is to deal with the physical obstacles, i.e. inflammation, i.e. the junk that we're putting into our body, and cleaning it up. And then seeing how we feel. Start off, like you said, 3 days, 5 days, give it a timeline, be strict about it, maybe find a coach like yourself, an accountability partner, do your shopping together, hold yourself accountable, join an online forum or a group, whatever the case is.
Join this chat group.
But give it a shot, right? And set a timeline for yourself so that you're not setting yourself up for disappointment, right? If you give it 3 days, but you ended up being a 5-day person, then you've lost out. So commit to this. Try going clean, try going organic for a specific period of time. What would you recommend as a minimum period of time for all of us to give it a trial run?
It's obviously the longer you do it, the better the results you're going to get. I would say just do 7 days,
Okay.
small steps,
Yes.
and just begin to acknowledge how you feel. Take note of how you feel.
Brilliant.
With some of my clients, one of them has bipolar. She was one of my first clients a few years ago, and she couldn't believe that what she ate impacted her need for medication. So she realized that when she reduced sugar and like excessive carbohydrates, that her need for medication dropped. It was amazing. Balanced off her blood sugars.
That's incredible.
Has a direct impact on your need for medications.
Yeah.
So that was pretty amazing.
I hope you're hearing that, everyone, because I was actually, confession time. I was fearful of conducting this interview because I admit right now that I have a weak spot for sugar and I have a weak spot for those carbs. And it takes some time for those addictions to wear off when I go on a special diet or I'm watching my nutrition. And I knew that the truth of what you were going to be saying was going to connect with me very, very strongly in a way where I don't have a choice. If I want to be happier and healthier, if we all want to be happier and healthier, we have to start with our minds and our bodies equally. And that starts with a visit to the supermarket and buying the right things instead of rushing to the snack aisle. That's
100%. Yeah. The sugar, let me give you a little thing about sugar. So I've coached a few people off sugar, and this little snippet might really help. And it's your body craves more of what you give it.
Yeah.
So if you give your body loads of sugar and carbs, you're going to crave more of that. When you start to introduce all these micronutrients into your diet and start vegetable juicing, for example, at the beginning it might be like a bit sour, but you start to crave it more. If I don't have a salad for like a day or two, I'm like, I need some vegetables. And I go a bit nuts and I go and seek an amazing, salad and whatever. But I definitely, in LA, I'm spoiled for choice because you have all these options, and over here in London it's not quite the same. It's definitely getting there, but it's not on your doorstep like it is in LA. But yeah, your body craves more of what you give it.
Excellent. Keep that in mind, everybody. It's true. That's been my experience as well, particularly with sugar. So
Yeah.
Time to wean off. Well, Neil, it has been enlightening to say the least. Thank you so much for all these truths and tidbits of wisdom. I can't thank you enough. I understand that you are making a very generous offer to our viewers here. Why don't you tell us what that is? So
I am doing private health coaching. I have a couple of options. I do have my digital program. It's successful when people commit. The best results are when I privately coach. Mm-hmm. So normally I've actually changed my pricing structure completely because I'm kind of aiming at the high end, busy executive area now. But for this summit, I thought I'd give kind of my old price, which is $997 for 6 weeks. And that's 30 minutes every week with the digital program, which I kind of hold your hands, guide you through it, and make it as bespoke as possible. So the best results by far are people who I coach personally. We're all guilty of buying online programs and not finishing them off.
Very true.
And I've done this with tons of online programs. So it's almost like I'm almost doing people a disservice by having the digital program online because people buy it and don't do it. Whereas when I coach them, they get results. So I would encourage you to take me up on this offer because it's awesome.
Awesome is good.
Yeah.
For those who, for whatever reason, can't avail themselves of your coaching, I think you were going to offer them an opportunity to read the book that you wrote. Is that right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can. I've got a free download, which you can find at, I believe the link is vitalitysecret.com/summit. You'll need to confirm that for me.
We will confirm that, and by the time you're watching this, we will make sure that you have the information both in the email intro for this interview and on the page right here for the interview. So thank you so much for your generosity and for sharing that gift and for all this information, which really is a gift. I hope you guys will all join me as we try to make strides toward a healthier and thus happier life. And thanks again for joining us, Neil.
Thank you so much, Lee. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Excellent. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you on tomorrow's video, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.